Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Just in case I forget, today we're having a Harinam at 5:30. Is that the right time? 5:30?
Yes.
So all the temple residents, there'll be a lot more people than last time. So if anyone wants to come, we go on singing the names. Please go. 5:30. Good fun. So we'll be outside the temple here at 5:30. And you get a free meal. The Govind is afterwards. So,
Yeah. That's it.
Good. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 12, text number 29. Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Pachitaya Sarve Pratikjagmu Swakangriyan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Sabe Pratikjagmu Swakangriyan Ragya Upadisya Prajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Sarve Jagmu Sukangriyan
Iti Ragya Upadisya
Viprajataka Kovida
Labdha Pachitaya Sarve
Pratijagmu Swakangrihan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Save Pratijagmu Swakangrihan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Save Pratijagmu Swakangrihan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Save Pratijagmu Swakangrihan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Save Pratijagmu Swakangrihan Iti Ragya Upadisya Viprajataka Kovida Labdha Pachitaya Save Pratijagmu
Upadisha,
Upadisha,
advised, Vipra, persons well versed in the Vedas,
persons well versed in the Vedas,
Jataka Kovida,
Jataka Kovida,
persons expert in astrology,
persons expert in astrology,
and in the performance of birth ceremonies,
and in the performance of birth ceremonies.
Apachayataya,
Labda Apachitaya,
those who had received sumptuously
those who receive sumptuously
as remuneration,
as remuneration.
Save,
Save,
all of them, Pati Jagmu, went back, Swakan,
their own,
Rihan, houses. Translation. We'll just explain why we say the Sanskrit, because this is the cream of the Vedas. Out of all books of knowledge, all books, the Vedas are the most important books. Veda means knowledge. So the Vedas give knowledge of everything, practically, size of the universe, what Krishna is doing at this moment, what he's wearing, everything. So the Vedas are very essential for human society to be established in a proper lifestyle. So we say the Sanskrit, and by repeating the Sanskrit, we actually become purified, because these words are, this is eternal knowledge. This is not like mundane newspaper or something. This is most important knowledge, because it says that people who've lost their vision due to the dense darkness of this age of Kali will get light from this shining history. It's the history of the universe. So the translation, thus those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhisthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes. Remunerated, what does it mean? By any?
Given donation.
Means
Fed.
Means rewarded,
Rewarded.
not paid. It's not like a job. They
Yeah.
get rewarded. But please repeat. Thus, those who were expert
Thus those who are expert
in astrological calculation,
in astrological knowledge
and in performance,
and performance
the birth ceremony,
of the birth ceremony,
instructed King Yudhisthira
instructed King Yudhisthira
about the future,
the future
history of his child.
history of his child,
Then, being sumptuously remunerated,
and being sumptuously
they
remunerated,
all returned to their respective homes.
they will return to their respective homes.
Purport by Sri Prabhupada. The Vedas are the storehouse of knowledge, both material and spiritual, but such knowledge aims at perfection of self-realization. In other words, the Vedas are the guides for the civilized man in every respect. Since human life is the opportunity to get free from all material miseries, it is probably guided by the knowledge of the Vedas in the matters of both material needs and spiritual salvation. The specific intelligent class of men who were devoted particularly to the knowledge of the Vedas were called the Vipras, or the graduates of the Vedic knowledge. There are different branches of knowledge in the Vedas, of which astrology and pathology are two important branches necessary for the common man. What's pathology?
Omens.
Illness.
Omens.
Illness.
Illness. Illness.
Illness.
What is omens?
Sickness, yeah. Anyone have any other ideas? Look it up.
I can.
Someone look it up. Who's got Google it?
It's a scientific term if you are diseased.
Huh?
The
It's a
science,
scientific term, pathology.
the science of causes and effect of
What does it
disease.
We have a
Study of
study
disease.
diagnosis of disease.
Disease skeleton.
Pathology is the study of the causes and effects of disease or injury.
Wow, it's on the board there, man.
That's good. So, ladies,
There they are, pathologists
There's
on the screen.
a picture.
Thank you. Okay. Astrology and pathology are two important branches necessary for common man. So the intelligent man, so what's the most important thing for good health?
Astrology and pathology.
Good health.
Oh, diet.
Do the good things.
What?
Regulation. Eating, sleeping.
Regulation, yeah. Cleanliness.
Mm.
And of course chanting the holy name. Because if you're not, because your body's destined to die anyway, but if you're spiritually healthy, it's okay. So the intelligent man, generally known as the Brahmins, took up all the different branches of Vedic knowledge to guide society. Even the Department of Military Education, Dhanurveda, was also taken up by such intelligent men, and the Vipras were also teachers of this section of knowledge, as were Dronacharya, Krupacharya, etc. The word Vipra mentioned herein is significant. There is a little difference between the Vipras and the Brahmins. The Vipras are those who are expert in Kamakanda, or fruitive activities, guiding the society towards fulfilling the material necessities of life, whereas the Brahmins are expert in spiritual knowledge and transcendence. This department of knowledge is called Jnana Kanda, and above this is the Upasana Kanda. The culmination of Upasana Kanda is the devotional service of the Lord Vishnu, and when the Brahmins achieve perfection, they are called Vaishnavas. Vishnu worship is the highest of the modes of worship. Elevated Brahmins or Vaishnavas engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and thus Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the science of devotional service, is very dear to the Vaishnavas. And as explained in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is the mature fruit of Vedic knowledge and is superior subject matter above the three khandas, namely Kama, Jnana and Upasana. Amongst the Kama Kanda experts, the Jataka expert Vipras were good astrologers who could tell all the future history of a born child simply by the astral calculations of the time, Lagna. Such expert Jataka Vipras were present during the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, and his grandfather, Maharaj Yudhisthira, awarded the Vipras sufficiently with gold, land, villages, grains, and other valuable necessaries of life, which also include cows. There is a need of such Vipras in the social structure, and it is the duty of the state to maintain them comfortably, as designed in the Vedic procedure. Such expert Vipras, being sufficiently paid by the state, could give free service to the people in general, and thus this department of Vedic knowledge could be available for all. So this is the ideal society. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes to the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. So, there is an ideal society which is run according to Vedic principles, and there are 4 classes of men. Everybody falls naturally into one of these 4 classes. Some people are intelligent, intelligentsia, they're the head of society. Londonisvara. So society should be organized. There's in the body, there's a head, there are arms, there's a belly, and there's legs. So the head, obviously, is the most important because without the brain, everybody will die. So society has become dead and completely spiritually dead, at least, running around like a chicken with the head cut off, with no direction, no purpose. So it's very important to revive the training of people so they can become Brahmins. So in the days of yore, they will be sent to the Gurukula, to the place of the Guru at a very young age, and they would learn how to practice devotional service and many other things. Even Krishna took set an example for human society. He himself went to Gurukula and he studied under his teacher Sandipani Muni, and he learned many very interesting things, which I can't remember offhand, but he learned how to imitate animals, he learned how to speak different, he learned how to actually speak in the language of the animals, he learned how to do astrology, how to paint things, how to tell what's going to happen by the signs in life. You get certain symbols that, you know. Anyway, I wish I could remember. I don't have a good memory, it's a problem. But you can look it up in the Krishna book. So many things Krishna learned. And so society should ideally train young people how to become devotees of Krishna, whichever varna, whichever kind of aptitude they have, whether they're intellectuals or inclined to fighting like the military people, or they're farmers or business people, or maybe they're laborers. Everybody is very important in society. And so at a young age, every person was given the appropriate training which suited their nature, because everybody's different. Even in our modern society, we have intellectuals, we have soldiers, we have farmers, not so many farmers, and then we have laborers. So we're trying to introduce this gradually. This is what Srila Prabhupada wanted. He wanted to establish an ideal society so that, because people need to be rightly situated in their proper occupation, otherwise they feel frustrated. So it's not that everybody can be a Brahmin. Everybody has different propensities, and some people like to fight, some people like to study, some people like to make money, some people like to work hard. So everybody can fit into their respective natural position and be satisfied. But it's all based on the Vedas, because the Vedas are how we get life. And I was going to read this wonderful offering by Shiva Ramswami to Srila Prabhupada to actually emphasize the importance of the Vedas. This is a very beautiful offering, so please listen carefully. Dear Srila Prabhupada, every year, for those of you who don't know, we actually celebrate the birthday of the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. Everybody writes an offering, words of praise and gratitude. So this is Shiva Ramswami's offering. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisance at your lotus feet. All glories to your divine grace, and all glories to your divine appearance day. Some 30 years ago, I wrote a Vyasa Puja offering about a granny in Hungary, who by the influence of your movement became a devotee. That story highlighted the transformation you have brought about in the lives of countless people who may live in even the most far-flung parts of the world. Many devotees contacted me about that old lady, and even today I'm occasionally asked about her and how she is. She has moved on, but her history is not a one-off, it was one of many. Since that time I have seen your movement continue to transform the young and the old. And while every person's story is unique, they all have one thing in common: you are their savior. This year I would like to narrate another example of how Krishna consciousness is saving people day by day, and how every story of salvation increases your already endless glories. I will tell the history of Janani Devi Dasi. However, I emphasize that her final words are the essence of my narration, the essence of her life, the essence of the marvel of your influence. Sometime back in 1991, our book distributors entered a modest ice cream shop in a very remote part of Hungary. The shop owner, Irene, was in her 30s, a mother of 3 girls, her husband, a simple Christian working in the hospitality sector. Irene purchased whatever Bhagavatams, we're reading from the Bhagavatam, we had in print, and thereafter, year after year, she would purchase every new book that came out, reading them very carefully. In this way, Irene became a devotee. She chanted 16 rounds a day, was a vegetarian, made her little girls vegetarians, and raised them as devotees by telling them stories from Krishna book. After some years, the book distributors no longer visited, But Irene continued on with her Krishna conscious life, even though she never saw devotees or visited the temple. Meanwhile, all was not well at home. Irene's husband was against Krishna consciousness. That's why it's important to marry the devotee of Krishna. And the changes it was bringing into his house. He tried to burn Irene's Gita and forbade her practices. But Irene would not stop her Krishna consciousness, neither would she stop teaching it to her children. Needless to say, the differences between the parents became a source of ongoing tension in the household. Yet Irene remained her serene, sweet, soft-spoken self, a lone devotee in her home, in her greater family, in her village. She never faltered, but continued year after year, decade after decade, following what she read in your books. Her girls grew up, finished their education, and married with children of their own. The middle daughter was named Bia, and she was an economist who worked at a bank as a financial advisor. As Krishna would have it, being a devotee, she used to visit the temple, and in conversing with some ladies, she became inspired to work for the Budapest temple, organizing festival programs. We all knew that Bia was a devotee, but it took some time before we came to know that almost all her family were devotees, including her mother. When I heard the story of her elderly Krishna-conscious mother, I asked if Irene could come to the temple. How was someone chanting 16 rounds and following the principles for 32 years and not initiated? I first met Irene in 2017, and we talked at length. She was such a sweet person, such a sweet devotee. We agreed that in time she would formalize her relationship with Krishna through initiation. In the spring of 2019, Irene was taken to hospital for what was meant to be a minor colon operation, only to be told that she had 4-stage cancer that had spread throughout her body. The doctors were amazed that she did not complain of any pain, and they gave her only a few months to live. Irene took the news gracefully, peacefully, indeed so much so that the doctors sent her to a psychologist. But there was nothing wrong with Irene. She understood the temporary nature of the body, and she didn't complain about her fate. She had full faith that everything was as it was supposed to be. Events moved quickly and predictably. With great difficulty, Irene came to see me in August, and we again spoke of initiation. But because in our philosophy, it stated that to go back to Godhead, to go back to the spiritual world, you have to take initiation by the living Guru. So he wanted to initiate her so that she could finish her material life and go back to the spiritual world. And we spoke again of initiation, which then took place the next month during the Radhashtami festival. Irene received the name Janani Devidasi. She was a real mother. Janani's illness swiftly took its toll, and she was no longer able to travel the distance from home to the temple or to Krishna Valley. Then came COVID, a period of 2 years that I spent almost exclusively in Krishna Valley. It was not a time of travel. From that time, March 21, Janani's condition deteriorated rapidly. In May, I began to call Janani regularly to help prepare her for her final lesson, her departure from this world. I would speak to her or read to her while her girls took turns nursing her. Bia was with her 24/7. And in that time she witnessed Janani's non-stop, intense Krishna consciousness, during which she was either listening to your divine grace or hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is another of our books. Almost up until her passing, Janani always chanted 16 rounds and read your books. Then the evening before her passing, I called and read Narottam Das Thakur's prayer. My dear Lord, please hear me. The day that I give up my body absorbed in thoughts of you, please give me shelter at your lotus feet. I encouraged her to pray to Krishna so that she may always think of him, that he kindly take her back to Godhead to be either a Gopa or a Gopi. That means a cow, a boyfriend of Krishna or a girlfriend of Krishna. All night your bhajan played it as Janani slept, and in the morning Bia asked her if she remembered the prayer we had spoken about. She nodded in affirmation. Bia and her sister Rita bathed and dressed Janani, and at 9:46 a.m., while the two girls were chanting beside her, Janani Devi Dasi left this world. It was the 9th of June 2021. As I said at the beginning, this story is an introduction to its conclusion, which is a summary of Janani's words spoken by Bia at the Ashes immersion ceremony in Krishnavati. Janani has said, from the first day that I began to read Srila Prabhupada's books, I accepted everything that he said as true and followed everything that he instructed. Throughout my life, I never doubted Srila Prabhupada for a moment, for I knew that in him and his teachings I had found what I was searching for all my life. I do not lament my imminent death, for I know everything as it should be, and Krishna will always be with me. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada was and continue to be amazed at how this meek housewife has such unflinching faith in your teachings, and how just by reading your book she attains such an elevated state of devotion without any devotee association. I do not know how many other people in remote parts of this world, unknown to nearby temples or devotees, have been transformed in the same way. It is the wonder of your books and of your teachings. However, I do know that you continue to live and guide sincere souls who, like Janani, are looking for the truth and want to live by it. Thank you for being so wonderful. Oh yes, and one final thing. At the conclusion of the Ashir ceremony, after having been his wife all through having been with his wife all through her illness, after hearing her words of devotion, and after hearing the remembrances of the ceremony, Janani's husband approached me with tears in his eyes and extended his hand. As we shook hands, he said in a choked voice, Thank you for all that you did for Janani. Srila Prabhupada, I didn't do anything. We just distributed your books. And another thing, ironically, Rita, the other daughter, also married a husband who was against Krishna consciousness and her devotional practices, while Janani could still speak. The last instruction that she gave Rita was that she should make her whole family Krishna conscious, and she did. Her husband had been chanting 16 rounds for the last year, and we didn't do anything other than distribute your books. Your servant Shiva. So anyway, I get a bit emotional. So, yeah, so I'm going to read something else now. I want to cry. This is very nice too. Because it was talking about different devotees and different types of Brahmins and Vipras. So this is a poem. It's not a poem, it's a book called Ananda Vrindavan Shampoo. It's a wonderful book. Of course, you should read all of Prabhupada's books before you read this. But this is an amazing poem. When he was 7, actually, this poet, I'll read about his life afterwards. But this is describing, see, Krishna likes dancing. Even Stephen Hawkins, who was a famous astrophysicist, he said, I could believe in a God that dances. So Krishna likes to dance, but he never, unfortunately, got to hear about Krishna dancing, Stephen Hawkins. But Krishna has a dance with his girlfriend and other ladies who join him. And so this is about the night of the dance. And it's describing the moon, because the moon is a personality, like the earth is a personality, Bhumi. So when everything became very degraded 5,000 years ago, the demigods, they were concerned about the state of the earth, so they approached Lord Vishnu, who's an expansion of Krishna, and they asked him to appear in this material world. So the demigods, they approached him, and he did appear 5,000 years ago. And so Anyway, the moon is a person. So this is describing the moon. I hope you like it. The bright full moon rose quickly and moved into its position for its service. Rising in the pink sky, it looked like a round dye tub for Cupid to colour the cloths of the hearts of young men and women. It looked like a golden earring reflected on the passion-flushed cheeks of the goddess of fortune. The rising moon appeared like a copper clock in the sky, announcing the time for relishing the sweet rasa dance. The moon appeared like the blissful face of the wife of Indra, the lord of the eastern direction. As the moon, anxious to see Krishna, continued rising, it turned yellow in colour, like fresh sprouts. Millions of stars twinkled attractively in the clear autumn sky. The moon appeared like a swan-dyed yellow from touching the pollen of the golden lotus flowers growing in the lakes of the eastern direction. It appeared like an offering of butter churned from the ocean of yogurt by the embodiment of time. As the moon continued its upward journey, it turned more and more white in colour. It looked like a white pavilion of the king of seasons supported by the ropes of its fine rays. Just as lovers, burning in separation, often look through half-closed eyes. Similarly, at this time, due to its brilliant rays, one could only view the moon through squinting eyes. The full moon looked like a plump white dove sitting in its nest of the sky, fixed in the pavilion of the universe. The moon and its spots looked like a crystal box with reflections of betel nuts on it. But if you say that a crystal box does not move, then we say that the moon appears like a sparkling silver boat crossing the ocean of the sky under the direction of the captain of time. If you say that the spots on the moon make it inauspicious, then we say that it is still beautiful and auspicious. It is just like a silver pot decorated with ornamental leaves belonging to the bride of the night. The moon glitters like the diamond earring of the playful Lord Balaram. It is like an egg produced by the swan of fame of the autumn season. The moon is like a cool, soft pillow to relieve Cupid's fever caused by his own pride. It is like a malati mala tied in the hair of the spotless effulgence of the goddess of twilight. This indicates that chaste women worship the moon. Against the dark blue sky, the white moon appears like the Panchajanya conch shell hanging on the darkened body of Vishnu. It is a silver umbrella of Cupid. It looks like a splendid crystal bowl holding ghee for a yagya. The moon, situated in the milky ocean of the sky, is like an oyster shell box filled with priceless pearls. It is the looking glass of the goddess of auspicious, the Chandantilik and the maiden of the night, or a city of camphor to soothe the eyes. The beautiful moon appears like a huge white lotus floating in a lake of bliss, a pile of foam on the ocean of sweetness, or the palace of the goddess of beauty. The full moon looks like the sandy bank of the Akashganga Milky Way. You know, it's amazing, huh? I like it. So much, better than Wordsworth. Alright, Ginsberg. So this poet, Kavi Karnapur, he's an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya is the incarnation of God for this age, and he's exceptional personality. He descended from the spiritual world to the material world to being one of Lord Chaitanya's associates, because Lord Chaitanya is God. He has to be surrounded by people or personalities who are not like conditioned souls, like people in the material world. They come with him. So when he was, so this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That year, Shivananda Sen brought with him his wife and youngest son, Puridas. So Puridas is this poet. He got a different name, Kavi Karnapur. Kavi means poet. So taking his son Shivananda Sen, went to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at his residence. He made his son offer respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of the Lord. Again and again, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the boy to chant the name of Krishna, but the boy would not utter the holy name. Although Shivananda Sen tried with much endeavor to get his boy to speak Krishna's holy name, the boy would not utter it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I have induced the whole world to take to the holy name of Krishna. I have induced even the trees and immovable plants to chant the holy name, but I could not induce this boy to chant the holy name of Krishna." Hearing this, Rup Damodar Goswami began to speak, my Lord, and said, you have given him initiation into the name of Krishna, but after receiving the mantra, he will not express it in front of everyone. This boy chants the mantra within his mind, but does not say it aloud. That is his intention as far as I can guess. Another day, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to the boy, recite my dear Puridas, the boy composed the following verse and expressed it before everyone. He said, Lord Sri Krishna is just like a bluish lotus flower for the ears, his ointment for the eyes, a necklace of Indranila gems for the chest, and universal ornaments for the Gopi Damas of Vrindavan. Let that Lord Hari Krishna be glorified. Although the boy was only 7 years old and still had no education, he composed such a nice verse. Everyone was struck with wonder. Okay? That's the poet. Kavikarnapur. So, there are many details about the Brahmins in the 7th canto. If you want to hear the details, it describes all the different types of Brahmins, and it's quite technical. But Srila Prabhupada basically didn't emphasize the technical aspects because he was really just dealing with people who came directly from the material world, weren't already born as Brahmins, like this boy was born a Brahmin. So he kept it simple, but when we hear about the associates of Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then we can understand more of the nature of the Lord's intimate associates, which are very rare, and society obviously cannot depend on them because they only appear when Krishna appears, but still, we should hopefully gradually introduce all the different aspects of Vedic culture. Maybe astrology. Srila Prabhupada didn't actually emphasize astrology because to be a good astrologer you have to be very learned, and it's not so easy to get it right. And if you tell somebody they're going to die in 10 years and you're wrong, someone will be depressed for 10 years. Or if you tell someone they're going to be very successful in 10 years and they're not, then they're expected. So the best thing is actually to chant Hare Krishna, because that goes beyond your karma, because astrology deals with your karma. And as Srila Prabhupada said, that when you clap your hands, all the lines in your hand change, because your lines signify what karma you'll have throughout your life. So when you clap in front of the deities, everything changes. So when you chant Hare Krishna, everything changes.
Yeah.
So we want to totally depend on Krishna's mercy, and that comes naturally for devotees who surrender to Krishna, and that means following the process of Krishna consciousness, and that will automatically, even if you may have some bad karma or had some in the past, everything will become auspicious. Just by hearing the description of the Lord, by reading this book, it says you automatically free yourself from material life just by reading the book. So we don't need astrology. We of course, when you get married, I never had astrology done when I got married, unless I had a very good marriage. We were married for a long time. But, I know an astrologer, in fact, who was considered a really good astrologer, and he had his chart done before he got married, and he didn't get on with his wife. So, but it's good. Now, there is one devotee called Banu Swami, and he does free charts. If people want to get married, don't ask me for his contact info, because I don't think he does it just for anyone and everyone. But he tries to help people, because he doesn't get paid for doing it or anything. But anyway, so we're trying to introduce, Brahminical standards, cleanliness, purity, knowledge, tolerance, forbearing, all these qualities, and that's the most important thing. So, yes, actually, one reason I don't believe in paying taxes, that's everyone, is because I feel I'm doing the most important work. The government should be paying me. These Brahmins, they got all this gold and villages and cows and everything else because they were doing the most important work of educating people so that people were happy. Because the kings, they were working under the direction of the Brahmins. And it said that if somebody's son died before the father, that was the fault of the king. Because the king, he takes responsibility for all the citizens. So, when society is controlled by a righteous king who's guided by the Brahmins, then everything is auspicious. The weather's fine, there's no hurricanes, there's no tornadoes, there's no freezing cold, there's rain to grow the food. So that's why, having a righteous leader, of course, we have democracy now, which is better than dictatorship, but it's not ideal. So because we're not like to have an ideal king in the near future, we have to distribute this knowledge to the general populace so that they vote. Eventually, maybe they'll vote for a devotee to be the king. We had somebody running for president a few years ago, Tulsi Gabbard. She didn't get that far, but at least she tried. And so, we need a righteous king because basically all these different intricacies of Vedic culture and astrology and Vipras and Brahmins and all that can only be successful in a society that is run from the top properly. So, in ourselves we have the ISKCON society, and we're trying to create a vehicle for conveying spiritual principles to the rest of the world. So we need to be ideal so that people will not criticize us. So even though we may not be experts in Karmakanda or whatever, Karmakanda means that in society everybody has material needs. People need to eat, they need housing, they need clothing. So if everybody has to have those things, but some people have material desires they want to fulfill, which are not just the basic necessities of life. Somebody may want to be wealthy. So there are certain sacrifices you can perform for that. They would worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, or whatever else, but intelligent people don't really want to be wealthy. But sometimes it's okay if we have some wealthy people. We had two of them here this morning, billionaires, dancing, pulled up in their Bentley outside. So, they have offered, at least one of them, millions of pounds to help build a temple here. Because this place is old, needs to be replaced. Anyway, so it's okay to make a lot of money, but it's an entanglement. It's a lot of work, and you never know if you're going to be successful. So the most important thing is to endeavor for pure Krishna consciousness and to do something simple that's not too entangling, that you can make a living without endeavoring too hard. Anyway, Hare Krishna. But, I say I'm distributing the books, which is the most important thing, because as we heard in that offering, there's a possibility that somebody may get a book and it may change their life. So this is the most important work, and therefore the government should pay me, but it's out of there, at least they don't pay my taxes. That's everything.
Oh yeah.
any comments?
Hare Krishna.
Very good.
Did Brahmanas used to pay taxes in Vedic society?
No. I mean, I don't know exactly, but I would be very surprised if they paid taxes because they were the most important persons in society. So they would be given, even if they paid, they would have plenty of, things gold to pay with because they were supplied whatever they needed. Whatever they needed, they were comfortable. They didn't have to worry about maintenance because their job was to study the scriptures and perform fire sacrifices and worship the deity and educate people.
They would receive a charity that was there.
Yeah, they would receive charity. That's all described in the seventh canto. Who's qualified to receive charity and who's not. Certain people are not supposed to receive charity. They shouldn't ask for donations. But, generally they wouldn't have to ask for donations because it's degrading to have to ask for donations in a way. Unless you're building a big temple, But for your own personal maintenance, you depend on Krishna, whatever Krishna sends along. Good question.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. I was wondering about Lord Chaitanya. You were mentioning that he descends here in this world, and that someone told me that there is a spiritual planet where Lord Chaitanya constantly resides.
Well, it's in Goloka.
Yeah.
It's a part of Goloka Vrindavan.
It's part of.
Goloka Vrindavan.
Someone said that there was, because I said, what if somebody is attracted to the form of Lord Chaitanya rather than
his planet? And then you can be engaged in kirtan all the time.
So there is a separate planet for Lord Chaitanya.
It's part of Goloka Vrindavan. It's a part of Goloka Vrindavan.
It's part of Goloka Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, is Lord Chaitanya present there as a Lord Chaitanya, or is he present there?
He's present as Lord. From what I understand, he's present as Lord Chaitanya because he's feeling separation from Krishna.
So why did he have to come to this material world as a combination of Radha and Krishna, and not as Lord Chaitanya himself?
What?
Well, Lord Chaitanya himself is a combination of Radha and Krishna.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya is, he came because that's who he is. He's Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayana.
Yeah.
Lord Chaitanya is a combination of Radha and Krishna. He wouldn't be Lord Chaitanya if he wasn't a combination of Radha and Krishna.
Okay, so did Lord Chaitanya come, or did Krishna come? I mean, he is Krishna.
Anyway, forget it. Lord Chaitanya is Lord Chaitanya, he's Radha and Krishna combined. Okay.
Is it one or two?
Mother Harini has a question. Try it without, just say it, talk loudly like talking.
It's fine.
No, speak, say.
I was just wondering if you could share some of your stories on book distribution that increase your faith.
Some of the stuff, well, I mean, yesterday we had such a wonderful time. We met so many wonderful people. She asked if I could say some of the stories from book distribution that increased my faith. So, yeah, I have just amazing encounters all the time with wonderful people. Like yesterday, we met so many nice people, and it was just wonderful to meet them. And there was one, for instance, girl from Palestine, as a matter of fact, quite beautiful girl, in fact, with she was very interested in what we were doing. She's from a Muslim background like you, and like Abdul, and so she was very interested in, she called up her boyfriend in America, and she had me talk to him about it. So he was smoking something. I don't know what he was smoking. So I said, why are you smoking? Because he said he was also from Palestine, he was also Muslim background, but he was quite open-minded. He'd been to Mexico and taken ayahuasca. So I said, I told her, look, he's not really on the highest level of self-realization. You need to teach him. So she got the book. She was going to send him the book. That was one person we met. Then we met, I met a very nice young Jewish guy, and he was super nice and very interested. He was really kind of in awe of the knowledge, in fact. And so he got the book, and then he went off and he came back, and then he went to the restaurant, and then he asked me if I want anything to eat or anything to drink. And then, I spoke to him for half an hour. You just meet so many interesting people when you go out. There's other people we met. You remember any others? We met a whole bunch of people yesterday, one after another. Very sweet Indian people who, they're easy to persuade to get the books because they just feel obliged, I think.
They're pious.
Yeah, they're pious people. Anyway, all the time I have experiences which put me into bliss. But when you always meet somebody nice out there. So, I've met people and, they become vegetarians the day you meet them. They totally change their lives. Like that girl, she was so happy to get the vegetarian cookbook. Any other questions or comments? Did you like the poem, everybody?
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Very
Good question.
Is there days when you don't meet any nice people? And what do you do on those days?
I don't think there's hardly any days where I don't meet nice people. I wouldn't get nice people. One time I was in a parking lot because I used to do the December marathon, and me and this other we used to go to parking lots on the motorways. Very austere.
UK.
Yeah, knocking on people's windows. One day, I knocked on this guy's window, and he was different. And then he was saying, well, people think I'm strange because I think there's life on other planets. People don't know what I'm talking about. So I said, no, you're very intelligent, there's definitely life on other planets. Anyway, I talked to him for a bit, and then he gave me £400, and I sent him a set of books. So you never know who you're going to meet. I've said it before, but you can meet people. I met one guy in America, and he was very long hair, disheveled, and I was at some university, school of arts, and he wanted to get a book. He didn't have any money, so I gave him a small book. And I was distributing books for the rest of the day. Then he came back at the end of the day, and he said, oh, I love this, I want to join you. So he came back with me the same day and moved into our temple. Because I had a after program in my house at the time. And he's still a devotee. He looks after cows. He's looked after cows for 30 years.
Far out.
Yeah, so you don't know who you're going to meet, but if you don't go out, you won't meet anybody. Yes, Matthew.
Just a quick one. It's okay. I'm not going to be running. So, I just wanted to ask you, do you keep in contact with them and come together?
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, I mean, I've got. Yeah, I mean, the one guy I met at a music festival in America, he got back to me. I gave him my card. I gave everybody my card. He got back to me after a couple of days and said he wanted to move into the temple. There's a guy I met outside Soho Street one day, actually 4 or 5 years ago. He was an African American black boy, and he had met the devotees on the street. I think he met Sean Kishore. He got a book on the street there. They had a book table. Anyway, he was at the restaurant, and so I started talking to him, and then I saw this boy's right. He was at college in America, in California. So I met him outside. So I took his number and everything else, and then I kept in touch with him. And I never saw him again. I only saw him for half an hour, and then I kept in touch with him. And I said, well, you need to come to a training house in Florida. So he was a bit hesitant to begin with because he's worried about his mother. So don't worry about your mother, she'll be fine. And I said, just get the ticket and just come. It's your life. So he did that. I spoke to him a few times in the meantime. And he came, he moved into the temple. Now he got initiated, he's in the Bhakti Center in New York. I keep in touch with people.
So, do you think it's important to do that part also?
Keep in touch with people?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's long you don't bug people. A lot of times, people, they might seem to be interested, and they'll give you their contact number, but it was just like on that particular day they may have been interested. And so I tend not to call people up unless they call me. But you can. I know in Atlanta they have a successful program. They have somebody who goes around keeping in touch with all the contacts, and they make devotees like that. But I keep in touch with a lot of people. Yeah, I had a couple of messages from people I'd met randomly. One girl I met in Florida, and I spoke to her for some time. She moved into the Krishna house. She had to go back home because her mother had some Alzheimer's or something. But she's always wants to speak and hear about Krishna. Yeah, I keep in touch with you. Anyway, we're finished. Hare Krishna. Shiva Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Book distribution. Ki
Yeah.
Great Harikara Guru Ki.
Yeah.
I was screaming. We'll fix you up. Oh, here. Yeah, he'll fix you up.
Each suite has like 5 each.
Well, do you have the
Oh, you did it?
I got the name. I can do whatever I want.
A few versions.
Really?
I don't know. Either